Hey everyone, I have been asked how people like Donwall do such good but simple drum loops for drum and bass. Uh, I do know how, I know the basics as to how he does it. He seems to follow a pretty standard, a pretty consistent sort of routine with his drums. This is a really, really quick video because I already have a full-fledged drum and bass tutorial that I did for FL Studio a few years ago. And I do consider that tutorial to still be relevant. I haven't made any drum and bass in a long time. Um, when I do get back into making it, I haven't really made much music in the past couple of years. When I do get back into making drum and bass, I will be doing streams and video tutorials in Logic. But for now, I've got my FL Studio tutorial. So anyways, let's get into this. So for the Donwall type drums, uh, he uses this classic loop right here, which you can hear in tons of DnB tracks going back to the 90s. It's this. So automatically comparing that track or that loop to his track I See You by Donwall. He uses this exact loop in this, layered with I think one other loop, might be two other loops that he's chopped up. But this one stands out in a lot of his tracks and a lot of other Liquid DnB tracks. This has always been the case. It's not a, there's nothing wrong with this. This genre is built off of using old school drum loops. So don't look at this and think that it's lazy. There is still a lot of processing that you need to do to get this to stand out and sound unique. So take this loop. Well, you don't have to do that. Take this loop and then layer any other loop with it that sounds good, and you can pretty much get good drum loops just from that. So I've got the Think Break. This is a modified version of the Think Break that I have, that I made, that cuts out the vocal sample, or the vocal part of the sample, and adds another kick to it. So together these sound like this. And of course I just threw this together for the sake of doing a tutorial. Both of these come from Jungle Warfare Volume 1. I have no idea where you can get it, honestly. I actually received this back from someone else because it is pretty much impossible to get this back. But that being said, I am not going to share it because I don't feel like having anyone coming after me. But anyways, it contains all of these classic drum and bass loops, including the Think Break. The only thing that's not in here is the Amen break, but that's pretty easy to grab off the internet. So most of these loops have been sampled from old school tracks, which is like from the 70s and 80s. Let's see, there's another, this one. That's a really common loop to hear. Just really old school stuff like that. I'm going to take pretty much any sort of old school drum and bass or jungle loop and layer it with something else. So like we've got these Lensman samples here, which which have some drum loops, which are really good. So we can just drag this in here. I'm gonna mute the think break. This should prove my point that I'm trying to get across, because I know I suck at explaining things. Stretch that to the nearest bar. I've got this on a 4-bar loop right now. So it sounds like this. I'm gonna lower it just a little bit. And combined with the tiny break, it sounds like this. So one last note before I end this tutorial that is very important is using this method. You cannot get away making a track using only drum loops. Okay, you are still going to need to use your one-shot hi-hats and snares and kicks, and that's something that there aren't really good tutorials for, and I haven't made a tutorial on specifically making the one-shot parts of the drum and bass loops, because it is difficult and it is something that you just kind of have to figure out. Part of the reason that so many drum and bass artists have a very unique style of snares that are very specific to their music. And this is just an example, is because everyone learns this stuff differently as far as the non loop stuff goes. However, if you look at my old FL Studio tutorial from 2 or 3 years ago, where I made an entire drum and bass track, you can kind of see how I made my loops, I guess. And then I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Speaking of that tutorial, I did that all in one go and uploaded it in 2 parts. So they're very long videos. They're each like about an hour and a half, I think. So I'm pretty well known for being extremely lazy. So you can pause the video if you decide to go and watch that tutorial and come back to it at any moment. But yeah, that's my tutorial on how to create really easy background drum loops for drum and bass. Have a good one, guys.